Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kaukauna, Wisconsin, riding a CST tires, SSI decals, Valvoline backed Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV motocross national champion, number 25, Cody Jansen.
What's up, everybody?
We're back.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, episode 157 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, in stock and available for purchase today at shop.csttires.com. I'm your host, Cody Jansen, saying hello to our nearly 280,000 monthly Digging Deep listeners in all 113 countries in which you are listening, and this is our Digging Deep Lake Sugar Tree review show. Mike Walsh is back. The racing at round 4 was exciting, and there is so much to talk about, so let's dive right in. Let's quickly shout out all of our incredible partners. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Major thanks to SSI Decals, Valvoline, DID Racing Chain, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, DP Brakes, Impact Solutions, Ultimate Poly Products, UPP Racing, our choice when it comes to case savers, chain sliders, intake manifolds, and more. Use discount code DiggingDeep15 at uppracing.com, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Whether it's the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the GOAT of electric razor trimmers, my personal favorite, the Beard Hedger Pro Kit from Manscaped, or the best nose hair trimmer ever created, the Weed Whacker 2.0, get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support all the great companies that support our show, and for any products that fall through the cracks, be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner to get what you need and help us out in the process. It's that time of year, the season is in full swing, and you and your machine could use a little TLC. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end, enabling you to help us out while purchasing the parts you need anyway. And did you know you can buy OEM parts from Rocky Mountain ATVMC as well? Yep, shipped conveniently right to your door. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs. Shout out to all of our donors, and if you are interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website. Major thanks to all who have donated, of course. Now, if you can't donate, but you still want to help us out, you can leave us a rating or a review on iTunes and Spotify, because that helps us out a bunch too. Now, it's showtime. The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep.
Let's go!
All right, guys, back here for yet another race review episode of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. The races are flying by, man. We're already creeping up on the mid-season point for the pros, which is insane. It was back to Lake Sugar Tree for just the second time ever. If you remember, we raced there back during the COVID season of 2020. And joining us to talk about going there in 2025 is the legend himself, Mike Walsh of Walsh Racecraft fame, brought to you by UPP Racing, our choice when it comes to case savers, chain sliders, intake manifolds, and more. Mike, I didn't know you were going to be making the trip to Virginia. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it that far, but you did. And I knew that we had to get you back on for another week, pal. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah. I'm excited to do it. And I had a great time at the race. I didn't know if I was going or not either, but at the last minute I decided I'd make the trek up, and I'm glad I did.
So how far is that for you?
It's about 12 hours. I mean, I'm not pushing it, but I was driving by myself. So I just, it was a nice little jaunt up the East Coast.
The thing is, for me to go to like that area of the country from Wisconsin, it's such a miserable ride because there's no good way to get there. So from about like Cincinnati or somewhere in that region, you're like snaking, goat path to get down there from there. So that's not that fun, but I really like Lake Sugar Tree. I really liked it there when we went there in 2020, not to mention the history that comes along with Lake Sugar Tree. The Dirt Bike National Series once raced there, the National Outdoor Series raced there. and Gary Bailey owned it. And obviously dirt bike racing legend. His adopted son, David Bailey, is a legend, obviously, too. And that was his training ground there at Lake Sugar Tree. So the first time we went there, I knew that there was some like American motocross history, but I don't think I knew to that level. And I wish I did ahead of time, because it's actually like there's a lot of history in American motocross that has taken place there. So it's a really cool place to me. I don't know what you think about it, but to me, like I sometimes like those tracks like that a little more than, when you would go to Steel City and like awesome racetrack, right? But they didn't always roll out the best racetrack for us. Or sometimes you could say that about High Point or Unadilla, places that I've always loved. But some of these little tracks, man, it's their Super Bowl to have us. And I really liked it there, especially talking to Ryan Smith, the owner, the first time around when we went there. We had him on the show and stuff. And it was a really big deal for him to have an ATV National. I thought it was cool.
It was cool. I thought it was real cool. They had a nice setup there. It was a new track to me. I didn't go in 2020, so it was all new to me. I didn't know that history that you just gave us, which I love digging deep because of the history that you come up with. I was 16 when I raced Southwick. And so, do the math, I'm 48 now. So I've been at this a long time. I've never seen a start like that. Not even Unadilla before they filled it in.
Right. Yeah. That start is one of the things that makes that place. Not only the lake, right? The lake makes it stand out from the rest. And then that start, man, there is nothing like it. First of all, you don't see a ton of right-handed starts. And second of all, you're freaking ripping into that first corner the way that, it's ramped the way that it is. You're right. I've never seen anything like that either, man. It is pretty intense. It's different for sure.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, Mike, I think one of the things because it sounded like there was a lot of people talking about the racetrack and how it came around for racing, I guess. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm wondering if the weather had something to do with that, because it started off pretty wet on Saturday, right? And I would assume, when that happens, you're kind of in for it on that it's going to be a rougher, kind of maybe tore up racetrack. And it sounds like maybe that's what ended up happening as the day played out on Saturday.
Yeah, it got torn up, and there's a lot of mixed reviews from the racers that I've talked to a lot of people. And Nick, I talked to him after the race. He said, he really loved the track. He really enjoyed it. There's a lot of people that didn't really embrace it. And I had a lot of people calling me about setup after, and Emma was one of them.
Okay.
But other folks too, and they're all saying the same thing. They're not used to these ruts. They're not used to this chop that this racetrack delivered. So definitely different setups for people. And I've heard people. I was in the trailer with Damien and his dad, and Brandon came over, and they were talking setup, and they were talking rear shock stuff and oil flow and clicker setup and whatnot. And everybody's got their own take on things. We've been at this a long time, but different riders, you hear different things, and so I think people struggled with it. I even heard Joel. I was with Phoenix a lot, and Joel was chasing his tail a little bit here and there, but Joel's always brings his A game. So I don't think many people saw him miss a beat. Obviously they've seen him with the second with the number 2 qualifying spot in the second qualifier. So I'm sure people are scratching their heads, but I think this track really brought out a different side of each rider.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're totally right. I think you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. It's those racetracks, Mike, that I think give, or not even those racetracks. It's those conditions that I think give people the most trouble at times, where it's that clay base, and it's saturated, and it gets, grabby and ruddy and train tracky and whatever. And people struggle with that. I don't think anybody feels super comfortable on that. Right. So sometimes, and you're a setup guy, so maybe you don't look at it this way, but sometimes, man, when it's like that, it's like everybody's kind of going through it, and you just got to ride it. And I think kind of, what we heard from Joel Hetrick, he kind of said that, right? He's like, maybe I should have messed with my setup a little more, but I just kind of rode it. I think that's at least what I got from his podium, speech.
Absolutely. And I think that mindset that Doug Gus, that Joel Hetrick mindset, I think that's the mindset that these champions have. They're not really chasing their tail. If they don't know which way to go, they're going to go with what they knew worked before, and they're probably not going to change a whole lot.
That's what Joel's MO is, right? He doesn't change but a clicker or two on the weekends from what I'm told.
Yeah. And he's, it's funny because Joel sets his own front end up, and I've never really sat down with Joel. So this is, I think, something that him and his father and his team have come up with. And hey, I'm not going to pry into their business.
Yeah.
They do what they do. We supply them with this part. So if he needs help, I'll be there. If not, hey, let's roll.
That's awesome. So the one other thing before we get into the ins and outs of how this actual race day unfolded and qualifying and racing and stuff like that is these tracks like this, Mike, and it probably brings me back a little bit to that COVID season of 2020. And I kind of liked that season in a way that we went to some different tracks and we raced some different stuff. We went to tracks that weren't as like a stop on the tour every year. And it kind of brings me back to WPSA because like WPSA, we didn't race on a ton of great racetracks, but we raced on different stuff. And some riders would shine because we weren't on the big wide open, flowy racetracks. Like some of that technical stuff and weird stuff that we don't always see, you do see some other riders shine in that kind of stuff. And I like that. Like I like just seeing something a little different and seeing a different racetrack. I think it's like a good change up, I guess.
Well, it's definitely a great change up. And, you talk about that. And I had heard through the grapevine that there was riders riding Lake Sugar Tree. I don't know when, maybe a month before. I really don't know.
I think even less than that, Mike. And I think you saw that because I think Kevin Saar was one of them and he was fast all day because of it.
Okay, there you go. So, I mean, these people are putting the effort in, they're putting the work in, and it's paying off, but you just don't know who's going to rise to the occasion. And I think we saw some really good racing.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Kevin was there because I think I saw in his story that he had posted being there, basically riding. So I don't know if that means Brandon was there because they're teammates or whatever at Westland Motorsports. But the race day starts out with qualifying, and that's a good segue because the real notable takeaway, I try to not put too much stock in qualifying, right? But the notable takeaway from the qualifying on this day was Brandon Hogue snatching pole position away from Joel Hetrick. And Joel came out, Brandon was fast early. Joel came out and put in a burner, and you would have thought that he wasn't going to be able to be beat on this day the way that he went like 2 seconds faster than the lap time he ran earlier. And ultimately Brandon turns a lap time half a second faster than Joel. And that's got to be the biggest takeaway from qualifying. Now, Brandon always, his best tracks are the hard pack tracks that are, fast and packed in. Like that's where he's at his best. So I knew he was going to be good at this racetrack, but man, not very often do you not see Joel. I don't have to, the whole world knows this. Joel's basically always top qualifier, but when you can beat Joel by half a second going into the motos, there's a lot of confidence that's got to come with that.
There really is. And I was in the Phoenix pit all day and supporting those guys. And, I was standing there with David and we were watching this deal unfold. And, that first qualifier, we were behind, like you said. And then at that last lap, Joel threw in a burner and he lowered the boom, which was awesome. I was really happy about that. I'm like, okay, thank you. That's
there
great.
It is. Yeah.
Right. So going into qualifier 2, I didn't think much of it. And I got the phone out and I'm like, holy cow, here we go. Brandon with, I think it was back-to-back burners.
Yeah.
And he put it in the 42s, 142 and back-to-back 142. Yep. And I was like, wow. So I knew Joel had more in him. I'm like, okay, and we had, I think 2, maybe 3 laps before the checkered flew. And Joel was on a rip. And on that last one, Chad pumped in behind him. So I don't know if the track changed, just that bad line choices, whatever it was, but Chad had pulled out behind him, I think to up his qualifying because Chad qualified. I don't want to bring negativities into it, but really not where he's used to qualifying. He was like ninth. And right. So he's probably thinking, man, downhill start, I got to get up there. So he tucked in behind Joel. Well, they both crossed the checkered flag. Neither one of them lowered. He stayed 9 and Joel was, he was, half second off or so, but he did not take that number 1 spot.
Mike, I think the other takeaway here was if you look at Brandon ran a 142. So everybody, Joel and Bryce, they're in the 143s. I mean, if you look back to all the way to 15th. So Max Lindquist qualifies 15th on this day, which is telling. So he qualifies 15th. From 2nd to 15th was 3 seconds, which is so little in this sport, at least. Like we've seen the pro class where there's 6 seconds that, separate the top 10 at times in years past, and to only have 3 seconds between basically the entire class here. I mean, it tells you a lot about the class, and I think it tells you a lot about the racetrack. The racetrack was creating really close times and it'll, create close racing as the day unfolds, but also everybody was just really jam-packed together. And that's why, with at least especially at this racetrack, I'm looking at this thinking, you can't put much stock in this. Max isn't going to finish 15th. He's going to be near the top 5 for sure. And you knew it was just going to create really tight racing going forward because everybody was on top of each other.
Yeah, I mean, Max's qualifying has been off, but it hasn't been that far off. So,
exactly.
I mean, I think this track had a lot to do with it. And like you said, some of these little tracks, some of these tracks people haven't been to create some really good racing. And a lot of times for some people that some racers that aren't usually always up there. So I think it's great for the fans. I mean, I love this. I'm a fan, so I'm watching and I love watching these guys go at it. So definitely created a great race no matter what the riders' takeoff was. So I think for the ATV community, this was a win.
So qualifying ends up, so Brandon's fastest, Joel's second, Bryce is third, Mason Jackson's fourth, Kevin Sarr's fifth. So like we said, I think we saw that bump a little bit like we saw Deckers from Kevin Sarr riding, a racetrack ahead of time. So we saw that from him. But the other thing that stands out in qualifying for me, and I don't know if I had this pegged as a topic that we were going to be talking about at basically every one of the first 4 races so far, but Mason Jackson, who I had high expectations for, but he has solidified himself as a top 4 or 5 guy at this point. And I don't know if coming into 2025, if that's what I had pegged on my topic board, because the dude is freaking resilient and we'll watch his day unfold. But he has been we've called him impressive. We called him, all the things, but you can't say enough about this kid. He's basically been at 4 races so far, a step ahead of all the other guys that we think about being in that 3 to 5 spot battle, the Nick Janusas, the Max Lindquists, Jeffrey Estrelli, Wesley Wolf, all that whole clan. It's almost like Mason has been a step ahead of them. And that is absolutely insane to think about because it wasn't long ago he was on a 250 and these guys were getting podiums in this class.
Yeah, he's been the guy. He's got a Joel Hetrick riding style. He looks real feisty. He's also hungry. And that's what we got to look at. I mean, you talk about the Nick Janusas, you talk about the Max Lindquists, they were hungry at one time too. They made a big name for themselves. You got to stay hungry. Doug Gus once said they asked the people who's going to win the championship, and Doug said whoever wants it the most. So, with that being said, sometimes you work real hard and you don't really think that you get what you have coming to you, and then you stop giving it everything that you have. I'm not saying that these guys stopped giving it everything they had, but I know that Mason Jackson is making a name for himself, and he's hungry right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome to see, dude. And I find him to be so likable. He's such a good kid, and I shouldn't call him a kid, but he comes off as a kid to me. Still, he has a riding style that's just like his own. I would say in years past, it was like he was hiding behind the handlebars, he's just back and kind of like Thomas Brown always rode. And yeah, it's really cool to see. I find him so likable. He's such a to himself good guy. And he's really, really, really making a splash here in the pro class in 2025. So it's awesome to see. So Moto 1 comes, Mike, and obviously Brandon Hogue, he's top qualifier here. He gets first gate pick, but it's Kevin Sarr with the whole shot, his teammate, and heartbreaker for him. We're going to watch this unfold, and very quickly he cuts a tire and goes from leading to all the way in the back. And I don't think he even finished the moto, but Kevin Sarr rips an awesome hole shot. Bryce Ford would grab the opening lap lead from Kevin. And like I said, we would lose Kevin there. Heartbreaker for him. And it wasn't long though, Mike. We saw Joel Hetrick make the pass on Sarr. Then he would very quickly get up on Bryce there, who was leading. And at the conclusion of lap 2, Joel went into the lead. And very quickly, we've talked about what he does. He gets that sprint going as soon as he gets into clean air. And I think it was about 2 laps and he had a 6-second lead. It was absolutely insane to see him do that. When he gets out in clean air, man, he makes a break for it.
Yeah, Joel rode flawlessly. And it is really telling that you see these sprinters with this qualifying, and then you see what happens when that Moto 1 gate drops. I was actually surprised that Joel was able to gap these guys like that, because we were talking about some very talented riders here and on a tough track. So, I mean, in this track here, I mean, I heard from numerous people, you can't pass. There's no way. It's only one fast line. And I got, and I responded passively aggressively to some of these people. Joel didn't have a problem passing. I mean, he went from fourth or fifth to first in like a lap or two, and that's against the fastest guys in the country.
Right. Yep.
So I mean, I don't know how he does it, but it was good to watch. It was great to watch, and then people were excited, and Joel was doing his thing.
You see, it's funny. You see Joel cross the finish line, right? Fast forwarding to the end of this thing, you just see him cross the finish line, and we're so used to him being perfectly clean. He's perfectly clean. It's like Gary doesn't even need to wash that thing if he doesn't want to. And that wasn't the case in that first moto. He was pretty dirty after spending 2 laps not out front. And it's kind of funny because we're so used to seeing the opposite. But yeah, he made a break for us so quickly. He made it look easy. He just has another gear when there's that carrot out in front of him. And I know, he doesn't like not being fast qualifier, right? Like he wants to be fast qualifier too, but winning these races is obviously next level. So he's out front now. Bryce Ford is in second. Before we lost Kevin Saar, Brandon Hogue made the pass on him for third. So it was Hetrick, Ford, Hogue, Saar, Wienen, and then Wienen and Wolf would make the pass on Kevin, and that's when we lost him for good. But Mike, maybe the most fun and intense racing in this moto was between that second and third place spot. We didn't see a bunch of dicing, but sometimes, not battling back and forth necessarily, but even just the intensity of guys being nip and tuck and bumper to grab bars is just as fun to watch. And that's what we saw from Brandon Hogue and Bryce Ford for the duration of this race. There was a period there where Brandon Hogue was actually the fastest rider on the racetrack. These guys were, bumper to grab bar, like I said, and Joel was out front making a break for it. But those guys in second and third were racing hard, and you couldn't look away from that battle for the duration of this moto.
No, you couldn't. And I actually got a chance to run into Brandon, and I'm kind of usually a straight shooter. And I had to say something to Brandon. I said, he had a lot of bad lines. In my opinion, he cost himself a lot of time with some of his line choices.
Okay.
He ran some outside lines on Ford. Ford stayed in the groove. Ford pulled 6, 7, 8 bike lengths out. Brandon have to reel him in. Had he not been having to make that time up, I think we would have seen different results.
Did you see him? He was just going to different lines trying to make something work, and it just wasn't the area of the racetrack to do it, you're saying?
He was trying to make a pass stick. He was trying to look for a line, which is great, but it was not planned correctly, and it was costing him a lot of energy and a lot of time. Luckily, he was able to make most of that time up, but he needed a better chance. In my opinion, he needed to stay on Ford and break Ford mentally and let Ford make a mistake.
Okay.
But he kept taking bad lines, and Ford kept getting away and probably building confidence. And he was able to maintain his second place ride.
Got it. Yeah, that's a balancing act, right? Because you want to make a line somewhere where you're able to make the move, but at the same time, if you're losing time, you're doing more harm than good. So that leads us to our next point here, because at one point Wienen fourth was catching those two guys ahead of him. He ultimately would never get there, but maybe that's why, because maybe Bryce was thinking that he needed to cover his lines, and Brandon's trying lines that maybe aren't the fastest. And that's probably why we saw Wienen creeping up on those two at one point in this race.
Yeah, it definitely was. That's for sure.
So I'll tell you, one of the most impressive riders or rides in this moto, we just got done, kind of touching on Mason Jackson, but he was basically last at the start of this thing. And to get, well inside the top 10 by moto's end, that's really impressive. That's another guy you're saying that, and I saw people too saying that it was hard to pass on this racetrack. And Mason Jackson was like a hot knife through butter at one point in this moto, where I couldn't believe at the beginning, and I picked him for my fantasy team. So on the first lap, when I'm seeing him come through in 15th or whatever it was at that time, I'm like, man, like this isn't the kind of racetrack where you're going to make a ton of moves. And by the end of this thing, man, he was, pushing towards the top 5, and we'll see him, end up with a really good overall finish on the day, another really good overall finish, because he was able to make moves when other guys supposedly could not. Mason Jackson, man, just won't be denied. And we saw that again in this moto, man. It doesn't matter. Good start, bad start, whole shot, not, it doesn't matter where he qualifies. There's no quitting this kid. And I think that's why I enjoy him so much.
Exactly. Just like I was saying earlier, that, he has a Joel Hetrick style. He's a slasher. He's small on the bike. He had a huge heart, and he's making those moves. He's making those correct moves, and he's making them stick. And I'll let you keep going, because I was really excited about that second moto.
We're gonna see him podium. We're gonna see Mason Jackson.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. So last thing I kind of want to touch on for that first moto is we finally saw a flash from Nick Janusa, P5 in Moto 1. He got a decent start, kind of helped his cause there. And we saw a first kind of real flash from him, Mike. We haven't seen much of him on the season so far. I know he's been, just hasn't got the starts he needed, but hindered by some things. We saw him good in qualifying, I think a week ago, was when we saw him qualify top 3. But I think I even posted during our play-by-play on Facebook that this was kind of hopefully the start of him turning around his season, because he hasn't been in the mix really. And a good top 5 finish in that first moto is what Nick Janusa needed, I think.
Yes. And I did talk to Nick after the race on the way home, and he did really enjoy this track. So I think that's what he needed. He needed that shot of confidence. I wish he could have kept it going for the second moto, but that one moto was a good moto for him. He was able to get in the fight. He was able to build his confidence, and hopefully he'll bring that into the next round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So at the finish, it was Hetrick with his customary 10-second gap over Bryce Ford. Again, second in every moto so far this season. Brandon Hogue would end up settling for third, Wienen fourth, and like I said, Nick Janusa rounds out the top 5. So then jumping right to Moto 2, Mike, like you wanted to do, Moto 2 comes up fast for these guys, especially, if you're a rider or a team member, you know how that goes. You did that for many years on both sides of that coin, and that second moto always comes up so fast. And speaking of fast, in the second moto, we saw Chad Wienen rip the hole shot in that second moto. He finally got the hole shot he needed, Mike, and that was really cool to see, because he's been not where we're used to seeing him at the start of some of these motos. He's been better in second motos than first, which is something to kind of watch, I guess. But really fun to see the 44 back out front there in that second moto.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I've been through this whole roller coaster with Chad from the beginning to now where we are now. And I went over to the pit earlier, and I was hanging out with the crew, and it was really loose over there. I mean, these guys were enjoying a family atmosphere. Thomas was working on the bike. It was loose, no pressure. Everybody seemed happy. Bike looked great. So Chad got out front. I mean, and here's the deal: the haters, the not haters. You go through, and you're just seeing people embrace this guy right now. I even talked to Joe Bird after the race, and he said, me and Chad, had history, this and that, but I want to call him. I just want to say, you're a hero, man. I mean, the ride he put in was, and I won't ruin it, but I mean, the ride he put in was tremendous. And it all stemmed from the whole shot, getting the whole shot, checking his speed with Joel. And he gave Joel a berth, which I was happy about, because I knew that he couldn't, not couldn't, but I didn't think he was really ready to run Joel's pace right then and there.
Yep.
I think it was the best thing he could have done. And we talked about Zach Decker at Chicani,
yep.
Right? That he should have just gave him a little bit of room, tucked in, see where he's at. Mm-hmm. And that's what a champion did. And I think he reaped the benefits.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I thought that I assumed that was happening in the moment. I figured he kind of gave him a lane, and he ended up leading a lap or two, or a lap or so before giving way to Joel Hetrick there on lap 2. So it was Hetrick, Wienen, Ford, Jackson, Rastrelli. That was your top 5 early in this race. And we saw Hogue buried back in 10th. So you knew that this was going to be a hard moto for him, unless he could really make some stuff happen there, especially early when everybody's packed together, stacked up. But Joel's making a break for it early. He got the lead. He built a 3.5 second gap in one lap. So he was trying to make a break for it. Chad was trying to hang on to him for as long as he could and try to make a break from the rest of the pack. And then we did see Bryce put some major pressure on Wienen for second for a little bit there, while Brandon Hogue was making his way up through the pack, passing Wesley Wolf for 7th at that point in the moto. But Mike, it just felt like, and I thought this as I'm watching all this play out, I just thought that as the laps clicked by and we saw Chad really weather the storm of Bryce Ford's in kind of, the first half of this race. And I kind of just thought to myself, I'm like, man, every lap that goes by where Chad's ahead of Bryce is going to settle into Chad's pace, and then Chad's going to keep going. He's not going to fall off. And I didn't know if Bryce would or not, but I just figured, the longer that Chad could kind of, suck the life out of Bryce, probably was going to bode well for Chad going forward. And that's really exactly what I think we saw happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if people know how big this moment is or wasn't, but this was a huge deal. This battle, this tremendous battle that Chad had with Ford. And I think he had it more than just with Ford. I think he had it with himself. And I don't think I've seen him happier when he came up the track. Oh my God. He was extremely happy.
Wow.
I talked to him after the race. He was extremely happy. And I was happy for him. And I think all the fans were happy. You heard people yelling when he crossed the finish line. This was a big, big deal because I don't want to say he's been struggling, but Chad's been struggling. Chad has not been Chad as far as since the injury. And this was a massive deal to go head to head with such a slasher, such a extreme new, young talent as Bryce Ford, somebody like you just said, got second at every moto this year.
Mm-hmm.
And to hold him off and to break him, I don't want to say like in a negative way, but I mean, Bryce went very far backwards after this happened. So we'll get into that.
Just like you're saying, Bryce at that moment, there was a point in that moto where Bryce would have thought, I finished second in every moto. This is my time to go get Chad and finish second in this one too. And for Chad to weather the storm, I'm sure that was and I didn't realize how excited Chad was about that. But you did touch on the vibes pre-race. You did touch on the vibes at the pit and all those things. And that is something that has been very apparent to me. And I love to see that because as such a gnarly competitor, as one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, as we sit here right now, Chad Wienen, to think about where he's at a point where it's like, man, I'm just so happy to be here and he's embracing it. That's where I hoped we were going to get with Chad, because you never take away the competitor, right? That competitive spirit is always going to be there. But with everything that he's fought to get back to where he is now with the uphill climb he's been on, all of that stuff, I'm so glad that he's able to be at a point where he's loving. I mean, second is a big deal, like that's really, really cool that he's able to kind of peel back where he has always been and to appreciate the climb back to where he is now. That's a really special thing, Mike. And sometimes I have to almost hold back on don't post about Chad too much. Don't talk about Chad too much, because to me, he's such a living legend. He's such we need to appreciate this guy while we got him still. And I'm glad that you're hitting on that, because I'm really, really grateful that he's here. And I'm really, really grateful that he's able to appreciate everything that he's accomplishing right now, because the odds were stacked against him. It would have been so much easier for him to just say, it was a good run, but I don't need to train to get back and race these kids anymore. But here he is. And other than Joel, he beat everybody else in that second moto, which is freaking killer. Yeah.
This was a win for Joel and for Chad. Mm-hmm. So, and that means a lot to me since they are my two,
biggest dudes, man.
Yeah. These are my two guys, and my more than two, but these are like you said, Chad is a legend. Both of them are legends. And Chad is 8-time, done a lot for the sport, been on a lot of motos, a lot of podiums, but it's sweeter now, I think, than it was 5 years ago. I mean, he's in, what do they call it when you're getting your golden years? These are Chad's golden years, and he's really loving it. I see him riding around on his bicycle with his children. I mean, he's this isn't factory stuff here. This is personal stuff. This is a personal accomplishment for Chad. He could have left. He'd still be just as great as he was. He didn't want to. And you know what? Talking to him, I could hear it in his voice. He still don't want to. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this cat's racing for the next 3 years.
I love it, man. I love it. It's so cool. I appreciate him so much. And I'm sure there's something that comes along with that, with sharing this with your family. Your kids are growing up. You can see how excited his kids are to, hold the trophy after the race and the family photos, man, and stuff. It's so cool. So yeah, so much appreciation for that, dude. He rode awesome. And that second place finish is a big deal. We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. The official tire choice of Digging Deep, CST tires are the choice of ATV racing's elite on the track, in the woods, and every other terrain. CST tires swept the ATV racing world in 2022 as Joel Hetrick, Bryson Neal, and Bo Barron rode their Pulse MXR and Pulse HT tires to an ATV Pro Motocross title, GNCC XC1 Pro title, and 10th ATV Pro Works Racing title, respectively. Led by champion Joel Hetrick and podium contenders Bryce Ford, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Nick Janusa, CST's Pulse MXR tire is the most trusted tire in ATV motocross today. Available in soft and standard compounds, the Pulse MXR offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. And did I mention they have a contingency program as well? Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. The best of the best choose CST. Do you? You know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, as the Yamaha YFZ 450R is the official ATV of Digging Deep. In a move started by 8-time ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, who with his next championship will become the winningest champion in ATV motocross history, we are living in ATV racing's YFZ 450R era. Alongside Wienen, 7-time GNCC XC1 Pro ATV National Champion Walker Fowler welcomed a pair of new champions to the Yamaha Champions Club, as the podium-proven Yamaha YFZ 450R proved to be the winning choice for Joel Hetrick and Bryson Neal. This unprecedented success for the YFZ 450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the clear fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has resulted in a complete Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Evident by the continuation of Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program, Yamaha riders will once again cash in on payout and prize opportunities in 2023, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com. Follow Yamaha Outdoors, as well as the new Blue Crew official channel on social media, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. SSI Decals, your way. SSI Decals sets the standard with the best-looking decals, graphics kits, and vinyl wraps in the industry. Established in 1947, SSI took shape as an offshoot of their parent company by doing a little work for local pro Chad Wienen. Nearly 2 decades later, and fueled by a passion for ATVs, the company has flourished into one of ATV Moto's most recognized brands. From ATV motocross, SSI has expanded into graphics and design work for top racers in GNCC, Works Racing, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Off-Road, and more, headlined by 8-time world champion Top Fuel drag racer Clay Milliken. Whether your project is big or small, SSI Decals will make your identity stick. Get started today at SSIDecals.com and use code DIGGINGDEEP10 for 10% off at checkout. Things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their wide range of championship-winning chains. From the street to the track and everywhere in between, DID chains are designed to give you the optimal riding experience with great performance and increased chain life. Consistent to the core, pick up your box of reliability today. DID, what drives you? For over 150 years, Valvoline has been dedicated to constant improvement and innovation across all disciplines of racing. As a proud member of Team Valvoline for nearly a decade, I have witnessed their unwavering commitment to pushing the boundaries of performance. Valvoline has sponsored some of the greatest names in motorsports, solidifying their position as a powerhouse within the industry. Being a part of this historically great team has been an incredible privilege. When it comes to my equipment, whether it's my daily commuting vehicles, race quads, or anything in between, I trust nothing but Valvoline. Their range of products and lubricants consistently deliver increased horsepower, durability, and engine life. I'm excited to announce Valvoline's breakthrough in performance, Valvoline Ultimate Power Sports. With up to 8 times stronger rust protection and 50% better wear protection, this cutting-edge formula ensures your ATV's engine runs smoother and longer for the ultimate ride. Tackle rugged terrains with confidence knowing your ATV's engine is equipped with the best protection available. Ready to experience the next level of performance? Head over to shop.valvolineglobal.com and use code DIGGINGDEEP10 at checkout to unlock an exclusive 10% off on your purchase. Don't miss out on this limited time offer to enhance your ATV's performance with Valvoline's Ultimate Power Sports engine oil.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0 and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com by using code DIGGINGDEEP20.
Hey everyone, this is Larry Mills, president of DP Brakes North America and proud partner of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. We at DP Brakes are a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology, dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheel racers on the planet. This year's lineup includes Jeff Rastrelli, Mark Baldwin and Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, and many more, including Mr. Digging Deep himself, Cody Jansen, plus all the top 17 GNCC pros such as 7-time champion Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Hunter Hart, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and previous champion Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on top of the podium week after week. DP brakes are available through www.dp-brakes.com, or you can purchase them through your local Parts Unlimited stocking dealer, or you can even message us, myself, Larry Mills, or DP Brakes on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions about product or sponsorship support, please ask us. We are waiting for you. Join the best ATV riders in the world equipped with DP brakes, and have a great year, everyone.
Headlined by their 4130 chromoly, Launderville Steel and Concrete Supply is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products. This racing family-owned full metal service center and concrete product supplier comes with over 30 years of experience serving the entire United States from their central Midwest location. As the #1 choice for nationwide shipments and with available next-day delivery in select areas, LSE has you covered near or far. 4130 is not just the chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for an array of motorsports applications, but it is also the name of the newest addition to the Pro Paddock, with riders Jaden JJ Launderville and Max Lindquist, introducing the new 4130 Motorsports team. Launderville Steel offers a large selection of material for any project, including their concrete division that can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. For a quote or more info, visit laundervillesteel.com today or give them a call at 715-675-6193. That's 715-675-6193. With the desire to keep you in the race, Ultimate Poly Products offers the Ultimate Protection Collection of case savers, chain sliders, intake manifolds, and more. Founded on quality in 1998, this family-owned and operated business produces products created by racers for racers. These industry-leading products are proudly made and manufactured in the USA, with their case savers being made of the highest quality American-made polyurethane on the market and designed to completely conform to your engine case to help prevent case damage from a thrown chain, because no one wants to be a spectator on race day. Join top pro riders like Bryson Neal, Walker Fowler, John Glotta Jr., Adam McGill, Cole Richardson, and more by using UPP Racing products. Use discount code DIGGINGDEEP15 at uppracing.com to save on your next order. Ultimate Poly Products, made to last longer so you can ride more. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. Mike, at this point in the moto, Chad is weathering the storm. Joel's up front. Chad's weathering the storm of Bryce. And this is when we see that devastating fire that everybody's seen at this point of Brandon Hoag's machine. The thing goes up in smoke. And man, what a terrifying scene. Like, I don't know if you were able to see it. We've obviously all seen the videos at this point. Post race, I'm starting to hear about like everything that happened. And thank God we were at a racetrack where there's a pond literally in the middle of the entire racetrack. But to think about if that pond wasn't there and you weren't able to get right in the water like he was because his gear was on fire. We see the video of him, his machine's up in smoke and he's literally got all of his clothes off other than his boxers, I think, and he's in the water. If this wasn't a racetrack where we had that, I don't know what we'd be talking about here. But talk about unlocking a new fear. Like, I've seen a couple of machines go up in smoke, but not very often is it a pro level quad. I guess it could happen to anybody, man, but you don't see that every day. I felt terrible for him, terrible for his team. Just glad the dude is okay. But I see this video of the dudes racing by this quad completely up in smoke, completely up in flames. And it's like, man, you never see that.
No, that was a big one. I've heard some things about it, and it's not funny, but Dane, Godspeed to Dane, but Dane, we did a special custom header with a reversion chamber in it and everything off on a titanium program, for his pro level bike, and we had a fire start, and I'll take the blame for that one. In Daytona with Dane, but it wasn't like this. This was a major cookout. This baby was roasting. Thank God, Brandon, like you said, that the lake was there, and a lot of people don't know this, but I had 3rd-degree burns. I had a similar situation when I was working in my shop. I had a visiting nurse for 6 months. So fire is nothing to be taken lightly. This is a big deal. And I don't know if I heard they changed the motor. I don't know exactly the fuel line problems. I mean, anything happen with anybody, with any team, stuff is mechanical, things happen. But like you said, he got off of it. He's uninjured. Well, for the most part, uninjured. And that's major. So, and that was a serious fire, and that ATV is pretty bad. So I don't know if they're planning on racing that, or they're planning on racing, a new bike, but I don't know how bad it is. But that's an aluminum chassis, and for the most part, and you don't want to cook aluminum. I guess I could publicly say now, which I haven't said, but I would change that chassis, because whenever aluminum gets over 700 degrees or in that range, you're taking the strength right out of it. So those upper frame spars and even that hip and stuff that's seen that heat, that needs to be changed or replaced or whatever. And I'm not here to coach their race team, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Mike, it's fascinating to hear you say that, because my wife asked me about it too. And I'm like, no. Now, let me preface all this by saying, and I said this to Brooke as well, I'm like, I feel terrible for the race team, because you probably weren't budgeting to have to build an entirely new quad after 4 races. I don't know what the race program looks like, but to be forced into that position where no matter how many race bikes you got, you're down 1 now. That's not an enviable spot to be in. But I said to her, I'm like, you can't trust anything on that quad. It's a full loss. Every bit of it is an entire loss, at least from my perspective. I don't know that you could trust any single piece, because just like you're saying, the technical stuff about it more than I do, but I'm like, that frame, everything there has been compromised at this point.
Absolutely. Motor included. And this guy's pushing the limits already. He's giving it everything he has. And these guys are stressing these OEM frames and these OEM engines out so hard. This stuff has a timeline. So just like you said, this stuff can't be trusted.
No. Like I said, I feel feel terrible for Brandon. Nobody signs up for that. Nobody ever thinks that that's going to happen. Like I said, new fear unlocked, kind of like I have these visions of like being at God knows where, Sunset Ridge, Redbud, I don't know, wherever, name any track where it's like dry and nobody's got a fire extinguisher. You know what I mean? And it's like, what if you're burning down? What if it's on your person? Like it could have been so bad. I'm so grateful that it went the way it did. As bad as it is to have a machine, be a full loss like that, I'm just glad Brandon's okay, because I love the dude like a brother. So yeah, I'm glad that he's all right. But yeah, devastating scene, terrible. We won't forget the videos, just like we didn't forget Dane's going up in smoke. Just like I remember being at Briarcliff last year on the mic watching an amateur guy's quad, burn to the ground. And I'm like, man, you just never think about that happening. So yeah, I feel terrible for that guy and that team. But moving on to the rest of the dudes here, it was a good first moto for Nick Janusa, just like we talked about. He had that really good first moto, but he had to scrap and claw for everything in that second moto. At the time, he was battling Joey Norris for 9th and 10th. Those two were. So just kind of a representation of how close this class is. You're a good start or an average start away from being in the top 5 or battling for 10th late in the moto. But as we even get later in this one, it's Joel Hetrick. He's plus 10 seconds over Chad Wienen. At this point, Chad only had 3.5 seconds on Bryce Ford. But as we got even closer to the end here on lap 10, we saw our first Max Lindquist sighting. We haven't talked about him much. He moved into the top 5 after making a pass on Jeffrey Rastrelli. And then Wesley Wolf would make the pass on Jeffrey as well for what would be 6th. But at the finish, it was Joel Hetrick. He was plus 13 seconds over Chad Wienen, and then another 11 seconds. So we saw, kind of like you said, Mike, we saw Chad Wienen kind of break Bryce Ford late in this moto, and Bryce Ford would end up getting everything that he wanted and then some by Mason Jackson. And I think that we kind of heard Bryce on the podium talking about that. He wasn't happy with the moto. He probably wasn't super happy with the way that Chad raced away from him either. But I think probably the biggest thing was the way that Mason Jackson was giving him everything he could handle by the end of this race, and probably weren't really expecting to see that, but that's what we saw at the end of this one.
Yeah, Ford is a huge name, a huge person in the sport, such a young talent, huge personality, and he can't let this go to his head. He needs to know who he is. But yeah, this one hurt. I mean, how could it not? I mean, Chad gapped him, Mason and Max reeled him in, and at the end of it, these guys went over the finish line 1, 2, 3, and it was that fast. So, and Chad was, I don't know how many seconds, you would probably know that, ahead of them.
11. Yeah, 11 seconds at the finish line ahead of Bryce. And we haven't seen that from Bryce. You know, he's been, like I said, he's been second in every moto all year until that moto. So we don't want to blow it up into something being, bigger than it really was. But at the same time, credit to those guys. And Bryce was just hanging on by the end.
Yeah, I'm sure he had arm pump. I'm sure he had some mental stuff going on. I mean, maybe he wasn't comfortable. Maybe he wasn't comfortable on the setup, the bars, the grips, whatever it was. Something was going on. It wasn't who we normally see out there, and I'm sure he'll figure it out. He talked about running home to Texas. I hope he doesn't do that. He'll need a few sets of shoes, but he made some jokes. But he was visibly shooken up, and it's sad to see a competitor like that. But you know what? It's part of the game. This is what these riders go through. They put everything they have in it. They put more than they have in it a lot of times. And sometimes they don't get the real results that they're looking for. And it could go on for years. I mean, I've had great riders. I've worked with a lot of them, and we've had a ton of ups and downs. So this is probably just going to be another feather in Bryce's cap. He'll probably learn from this. He'll probably rebound, and he'll probably come out stronger. But I know it. He took a shot to the ego on this one.
Well, and he's a pretty gnarly competitor himself. He'll probably take it on the chin, and he will probably come out with a chip on his shoulder at the next race. He hasn't really had anything so far to have a chip on his shoulder about, but I would think heading into the next one here at Ironman, we'll probably see that from him. And newsflash, he's in a really good spot still. He's second in points. He's only 23 points back of Joel, and he's got 40 points on the rest of the field, Mike. So
yeah,
he's in a good spot.
Yeah, he's clearly your second place guy. Yeah, for sure. But I predict that Chad Wienen is going to give these boys a real tussle in these later rounds.
I'd love to see it.
He's feeling good.
I'd love to see it. So let's give the full rundown of the riders here and the overall scores now that we got the two motos. So Joel obviously is perfect yet again. 1-1 on the day. Bryce Ford goes 2-3 for second. So he holds on and finishes second overall on the day. Chad Wienen goes 4-2 for third. Another podium for him. So that's really special. We talked about how Mason Jackson was buried at the back of the pack at the start of Moto 1, and he ends up going 7-4 for fourth on the day. So that's so impressive. Max Lindquist, another top 5 on the season so far. He goes 6-5 for fifth. So that's impressive for him. Nick Janusa ends up 6th overall. Nick goes 5.9. So not often do you go 5.9 for sixth, but he ends up finishing sixth overall on the day. Wesley Wolf, a little bit of a quiet day for Wesley. I know he was a little bit in the mix in Moto 1, and then something happened and we saw him fall a little bit back. Wesley ends up seventh on the day, going 9.6. So can never sleep on him, but it was a little bit of a quiet day for him. Jeffrey Australia ends up eighth overall. He goes 8.7 on the day. He was in the mix in both motos and near the top five, up inside the top five at times, and ends up eighth on the day. So he'll be going into Ironman, probably looking for a little more. Brandon Hogue, we touched on his day. Obviously, ninth overall doesn't represent how good he was on. It was on the day. Third in the first moto, pushing for second, top qualifier. But that 15th in Moto 2 is obviously going to bury him there in ninth overall. 10th overall, Zach Decker. A quiet day for him too, a little bit, Mike. He ends up 10th on the day, goes 11.8. But we didn't really see much of Zach in this one, even in qualifying. That one lap speed that we've seen him have so far this year, we just didn't really see it. Maybe it was the racetrack.
Yeah. Like you said, Wesley was quiet. A lot of my good boys were not visible. I mean, we'll see. I'm sure this next track will bring out something else, but Wesley was definitely quiet, and you saw that beautiful performance he had at Chicani.
Oh yeah.
I think it had to be the soil, and he it's a lot about comfort with these guys. If they're riding on such an edge, if they're not comfortable, they're just not, they know better. They don't want to hit the ground. So, I mean, some off results for our guys, and Zach, such a talent, right? Zach's just, he's all talent. I mean, I expected more from that team right now. Both those riders. So hopefully they get something figured out. I know they've been trying a lot. They've had a lot of weight reduction. Maybe they don't have the chassis set up correctly. I haven't put scales on the bike or anything like that. I know they kind of stay secret over there at Decker Training Facility. I mean, I do talk to Kevin, his mechanic, a lot, and I'm good friends with Jason and stuff, but I don't know the ins and outs of the program. I mean, we supply them with the parts, but
yeah,
you need to know exactly the caster camber, the weight distribution, what's their ride height, who knows what they got going on over there, but you really don't expect that from Zach with the level of their program.
No, well, the level of the program and the level that we know that he's able to ride at, he's a gnarly dude, but it just wasn't his day. And sometimes you go to the racetrack and you have these motos and you get a good start and everything's clicking and it doesn't feel like it's that hard. And then there's times where it feels like you're riding so damn hard and you're not on your normal pace. There's just times where it's just not as easy as other times. And, sometimes you can't even explain it.
Well, and bring it back to what you said in the beginning, 3 seconds separated this pack.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So that's why all of this, Mike, even the results in these motos, it was so start dependent. And that's why I think for guys like Mason Jackson, that's why it's so impressive, because for him, it wasn't start dependent. But for a lot of these guys, it is, so.
Right.
So Zach will definitely be looking for more at Ironman. We'll see how he fares. And then after Ironman, we go to Sunset Ridge, and that's a lot more like the soil that he rides at home, and the soil that we saw him really, really shine in. Guys like Wesley Wolf and him both shine at Chicani, and I would assume that we'll see that at Sunset Ridge. But in the meantime, we got Ironman and another hard pack track. We'll see how that plays out.
Jumps.
Yeah, big jumps for sure. Joey Norris, he ends up 11th on the day, so maybe he's not stoked with being outside the top 10, but it was another day where he was the top rookie, 10-11 on the day, 11th overall for him. Kevin Saar comes in 12th. He goes 15-10 for 12th. Woulda, coulda, shoulda for him, obviously after that whole shot in the first moto and being fast in qualifying, but not the day that he ends up wanting. 12th overall. 13th overall, Jaden Launderville, he goes 13-12, comes back from injury. He races. He was very competitive all day. He was leading Joey Norris at times, and that's the battle for Rookie of the Year. Good to see Jaden out there. I'm assuming what we kind of saw down the stretch in these motos was the ramifications of not being able to train. We heard from the Launderville camp, a week or two before this race, that there was going to be no practice to be had for JJ. He was just going to be hoping to even be on the bike for this one. And he looked, maybe not as strong late in the moto as we typically see from him, but like himself. So to get through a race day here and get some points, only lost 4 points to Joey on the day. So he's kind of right there for that battle. And in Battle for Rookie of the Year. He's trying to hang in there anyway, and to get through a race day and not get any more injured or anything like that, Mike. I think good showing for some of these the rookies, Joey Norris, Jaden Launderville, Kevin Saar, kind of remounting from that heartbreak in the first moto, finishing in the top 10 in Moto 2. So for that trio of riders, some flashes of good things on this day.
Yes. And I think Jaden actually, not to get off topic, but I do think that he had some more knee problems in that Pro-Am moto.
Got it. Okay. Well, I did see that he did end up falling back there, I think, in that second moto. So yeah, I was hoping that was not going to be the case, because he was in the mix and then ended up falling back in the pack later in that one. So let's before we get to those amateur classes, let's finish out this pro class. So 14th overall was Marshall Smith, goes 14-14 for 14th. 15th overall was Joey Chambers, 12-16 for 15th on this day. So not the day that he wanted after a really good showing at the last race. And then 16th was Adam Ulrich, DNS. So I think he had a motor problem. He qualified really well, then had a motor problem in the first moto or a crash or something. And then 13th in Moto 2, ends up 16th on the day for Adam Ulrich. So Mike, we'll get into some of our amateur classes here. So Joey Norris did it again in Pro-Am on Sunday. You just touched on Pro-Am a little bit. Joey Norris did it again in Pro-Am. He was definitely the guy to beat, that's for sure. Finishing on the podium with Joey was Adam Ulrich. We just touched on him. He got a little redemption from his pro day on Saturday. He ends up going 3-2 on Sunday in the Pro-Am class. So that's really impressive. This is a really fast Pro-Am class. A lot of good names in there, good guys. So cool to see Adam Ulrich in the mix. And then Noah Arnold goes 2-3 on the day. Young kid in this Pro-Am class. He's going to be a future pro and probably in the mix in the pro class for sure. That's a pretty cool top three there. Joey Norris does it again. He's won all the motos in Pro-Am so far. Adam Ulrich second, and Noah Arnold. Mike, that was a pretty good showing in the Pro-Am class.
Yeah, it was very good. Let me touch on this. Marshall Smith, I heard, was not going to be at Ironman.
Okay.
Yeah. I seen a post. I guess he's struggling a little bit. He wants to regroup. I think he's taking Ironman off, just to touch on the pro stuff. Now, the Pro-Am stuff. Yeah, definitely a very fierce class. I know Damien was running second.
He was. Yeah. And I felt terrible for him, because he was running second until the very last lap of Moto 1.
Yeah, I saw the video. I wasn't there. I was driving home that day, but I talked to his father as the race was after they unwinded on the first moto, and they were a little frustrated going from 2 to 6, I think it was, or 2 to 7. I did see the impact there. I was right at the finish line. I think he did a complete 360. It was tight though, so that was the end of the race, and it was still tight. There was a lot of guys right there. So what I saw on that Pro-Am stuff, I mean, you got. I don't work personally with any of the top 3 riders, unfortunately, at this event. But I see that these guys coming out of pro, they got that speed going. They got that. You can kind of see that they're on a slightly different level. So you got Jaden, you got Norris and Ulrich, and there's your 1, 2, 3. And they all race the pro class. So you got to kind of put 2 and 2 together there. These boys are kind of on a little bit, Damien was in there, Cody Houghton, he was up there all day, but not in that top 3.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like Pro-Am so much is, as long as we've been doing this thing, it's been a mix of pros and Pro-Am guys or pro sport guys, whatever you want to call it. And that's a cool mix to me. Cause like last year we'd see Mason and Kevin Saar battle at the front. And then at times we'd see Joey and Jaden get in the mix. And, now we're seeing Joey be a pro and be, kind of the guy. And Adam, it's really cool to see a guy that we don't see him in the mix a ton in the pro class yet to date. So to see him in the top 3 can only bode well for confidence going forward. And Noah Arnold's a young up and coming kid. He's 3rd. So you look at the rest of it. Cody Houghton is as gnarly as anybody, especially on a hard pack track. I love watching that guy ride with his TT background. So he goes 5-4 for 4th. Jaden battled some stuff. He would have had a better day, but he ends up 4-7 with what happened in the second moto. He ends up 5th overall. Damien Hubert was in podium position the whole first moto, ends up getting together late in that first moto, ends up going 7-5 for sixth. Heath Hanna, 7th overall. Cale Deal, who was at the front of races earlier, goes 8-8 on the day. So it just shows you how competitive the class is, how good it should be going forward, and how fun this one is going to be to monitor this championship as the season unfolds. I touched on Damian Hubert. He had a great day on Saturday, goes 2-1 for the overall win in pro sport. So that's awesome for him. Cody Houghton goes 1-2 for second. So that's good for him too. Two guys I really enjoy, watching ride and like cheering on those kids. And then Noah Arnold goes 3-3 on the day. So another great showing for him. So great racing in those pro-am and pro sport classes. I love watching those classes always. How about the WMX class? You touched on Emma at the start of this thing. It's one of those classes, and we kind of hyped it up early, even before we saw any of this, but it's one of those classes, man. You got to go to the fence to watch it on Saturdays because it's kind of must-see racing right now in the ATV realm. Emma wins the first moto and does her thing. She wins the first moto. Kinsey finishes second, and then Kinsey swung back in that moto too. And I was getting to the point that I didn't know if she was, going to. I didn't know how this was all going to play out. Sometimes, and I think I touched on this on previous episodes, when you win 40-some motos in a row, sometimes it might zap the fight out of you. And
it will. It's just life.
And Kinsey kind of showed that, hey, like I'm here to fight for this thing. Because in that second moto, she gets the whole shot, and Emma was right there throughout. But Kinsey inched away and inched away and inched away, and she ends up winning this thing. And now each of them got a win, and we're going into round 3. And man, buckle up because I think this is going to be a blast.
Yeah, I actually watched that moto, and obviously I'm rooting for my girl Emma Ray, which I talk very highly about.
Yep.
I did talk to her after the moto on text message and or on DM, and she was fighting a few mechanicals.
Okay.
I don't want to get into it, but she did call me about some setup a little while later. She said she had a mechanical. No excuses though. Osborn rode exceptional. I watched it. Emma was riding. Those two girls were riding extremely hard, and I actually got to view them both on the podium. And I didn't realize how much larger Osborn was than Emma. Yes. We're talking about, I don't know, like 5 inches. I don't know how big, but she has definitely some height and leg advantage where Emma's more compact. So I don't know if body styles played into some of this different track or I don't think Emma was not gelling with this track and Osborn surprised me. I mean, you guys talk so highly. I never really watched her, because I hadn't been to the races that much, but definitely can ride, and then backed it up in the men's class.
I know she did, dude. She did awesome. Yeah, she did awesome. I can't remember exactly. I think she finished 3rd overall in that A class.
It was up there, and Emma was behind her again. So this really sent waves through me because I'm like, wow, this girl is here to stay. And then I got the phone, I got the text or the direct message from Emma, and she let me in on a few things that they were having problems with. So I'm like, okay. Would it change the results? We'll see next round. So, I mean, she's did exceptional. Osborn did exceptional. Hats off to her.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to echo what I said on the last episode or the last 2 episodes leading up to and after Etchikani. I give Emma Ray so much credit for doing what she's doing, for coming across the pond, for racing on our soil, for racing these tracks that she doesn't know, all those things. She's a gnarly competitor. These two racing the way that they are and being that we're talking about it for as much as we've talked about any class other than the pro class on this podcast week after week, I think it's awesome. I think they're both likable. I came away from Emma talking on the podium, listening to her say Kinsey was better than me today. She deserved to win. Like, that's what a gnarly competitor says. When you get beat and you're a gnarly competitor and you get beat, you give the other person credit. And that's awesome to see. And I think what we're going to see from these two girls is they're both going to get better because Emma, you're saying her setup is going to get better. She's going to get more comfortable here. I think she's staying at Shaw's, right? Is she down there at Shaw's? So she's riding a lot. Kinsey has been away at school. She's done very little riding. So Emma's going to get better. Her setup's going to get better. She's going to get more comfortable here. She's going to get more used to our tracks. She's going to, get more comfortable living in the United States for a little while. Emma's going to get better. Kinsey's also going to get better. Kinsey's going to get better because she hasn't been riding at all. She's going to go back to where she lives, where they have a racetrack in their backyard. She's going to ride, be able to ride more and get more back in the swing of things. And both of them getting better and faster and racing harder and all of that is only going to be more fun for us to watch, Mike. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And these boys are in trouble.
Trouble,
man.
Yes. It's funny that we're talking about this because I thought about this too. I'm like, these two girls in the A class doing so well before, we'd see Kinsey get a good start last year and stuff. And typically she wouldn't go backwards, but if she was third or fourth or fifth or whatever, she was in the mix, but that might be where she stayed. And now there's almost like another carrot out there for each other.
Yeah. They want that bragging right.
They're in the A class racing the boys, but they also, you certainly know that they want to beat each other, and that's only going to make them faster and more competitive in that A class. And if you're one of the dudes in that class, you're like, man, I don't want to get beat by one of those girls.
No, and and I was thinking about that too. I was like, if I was racing a girl, I don't want to bring gender into this, but I wouldn't want to hit one of these girls. I wouldn't race a girl like I would race a man. So I'm not saying that they have a advantage there or a disadvantage. I'm just saying you don't really want to bang bars. It's just not society. We respect women, stuff like that. We know that they're they're supposedly the softer sex, and you don't want to take them out. Heavens forbid something happened to them. So it's gonna be a race, man.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought the same thing. And I've said this on my show before, but when I'm racing somebody, and not as much now when I'm just, doing it for fun or whatever, but it's like my little edge had to be like, fuck it, I don't like that guy,
Right.
And I like both of them. So I'm thinking about if I'm racing them, I'm like, man, I like those two. Right. I wouldn't race them the same. It's kind of funny you say that too. So
exactly.
Yeah, I can't wait for Ironman. It's gonna be awesome. So when you think of Ironman, Mike, what memories come to mind for you? Because for me, and this is kind of why I wanted to hit on this, is I think it probably was one of his last races for you guys. But remember when Parker was leading the pro class there for a little while at Ironman. And I think, like I said, I think that might've been his last race as a pro or for you guys. And I'll never forget that. I think that was the dirt bike race, the dirt bike weekend too, right?
Yeah, I believe it was. And who else was fast that weekend was Kazmarek.
Yeah, super fast.
Kazmarek is outstanding talent. And,
yes,
and Parker was, is as well. And they both had exceptional races and good for them. And what stands out in my mind from Ironman was a couple of things. I actually wrenched for Chad on the cross country side when we raced Ironman, which is a side note.
2014-ish.
Yeah, I mean, he did okay. He had some highlights, with the moto section real good.
Yeah.
And he finished and it was I think that was the last year Chris Borich won.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah. 2014, I think, is the year that
maybe,
happened.
Yeah. So what stands out for me primarily is the huge jump going into the back. Mm-hmm. That is a monster.
So big.
Chad Wienen tore his frame off at that race. The linkage, and that's where we came out with the linkage mount gusset for the Yamaha.
Oh, okay.
That happened at Ironman.
Okay.
Off that jump.
Is it that Godzilla into the back?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember
that's what was the frame breaker. So on the Yamaha, it's an aluminum chassis and it's bolted together. Well, the bottom's steel, the rest of it's aluminum, it's bolted together, and that's good. It can flex, it can move, and these impacts are, it usually sucks them up. But that rear linkage is a problem area for them, and so we made a securing strap, almost like a brassiere for this thing, if you will, that bolts to the chassis. And ever since we've done that, we haven't had any problems. I know JB at the same time, they came up with one.
Okay.
There's a little bit beefier than ours, but we did what we had to do. I didn't want to overkill this thing. I didn't want to add a lot of weight to it. And everything worked great. We sell a lot of them, but that is what stands out to me, because we had to change the hip between the qualifier and the first moto.
I remember.
So because we qualified on that chassis, I think we had to run that chassis. So we had to actually pull the hip, change the part, and the whole 9 yards. And Chad was a machine in the pits. So that stood out to me. I mean, along with all the great racing that comes from, it's a huge track. It's gnarly jumps. I mean, it's a real deal track.
I'm excited, Mike, because the last time we were there, the track for us was a little bland. Like after the finish line, it was really basic, you know, right, left.
That's where Deegan was doing that.
Yes, exactly. Right. But so by the time the bikes raced there last year, they had a wood section, and I don't know if they'll cut it out for us. It's kind of an ode to the cross country background of Ironman. And I'm wondering if we'll ride it or not, or if it'll just be a pro section or what it'll be. But obviously this racetrack is gearing up for the Motocross of Nations this fall. And I'm assuming we could see a couple, little added things that make it a little more MXGP like or something. So, and like I said, there was major changes in the works last year. Brooke and I stood on the finish line jump and talked to Tim Cotter for an hour last year. And he outlined the changes that they were making for the Motocross of Nations already. They knew they were going to have it a year ago at this time, obviously. And they were talking about the changes. He was talking about how the wood section that they added adds like $50,000 worth of cameras that they needed for TV and these things. So excited to see what we find there and what differences will be as they get ready for the Motocross of Nations. Super excited about that, obviously, to have that in the Midwest here. So last thing kind of for you, Mike, is predictions. Obviously, Ironman is probably Joel's best racetrack on the circuit. For many years, it was Unadilla, and the High Point's a really good one for him. I think you could argue he's been as good or better at Crawfordsville than anywhere we race. Joel, I mean, he's amazing at every track, right? But the hard packed fast tracks are where he shines the very most, and Ironman is right up his alley. It always has been. So from my perspective, I think we're going to see really good things out of Joel. And then depending on what this looks like for Brandon and having, what machine he'll be riding, as long as he's not riding some kind of practice machine or something, I'm sure they're not going to have him on anything that's whooped. But typically Brandon is a guy that's really good on the hard pack tracks, fast tracks too. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy that maybe he's got a little chip on his shoulder after the way that this all played out and the, kind of the heartbreak of that Moto2 there and things going up in smoke. I think he's going to be another rider to watch at Ironman. And you kind of hinted on the fact that you got your eyes on Chad Wienen.
Yeah. I don't know about the Brandon Hogue situation. I think I could go a couple different ways. I think as a competitor, you only can take so much, and I'm not going to say this is going to break him in the team, but I don't know if he's going to rebound from this, or if this is going to set him back a little bit, just because it's a financial loss. This is a big one. So people can only take so much. Chad Wienen is up on the rise though. So I do expect big things for Chad. Obviously Joel's going to be fast. He loves this track. He likes the big jumps. He's always been fast here. Mm-hmm. So he's, he'll always be my pick as far as,
of course. Yeah.
But, hopefully Nick gets going. I mean, hopefully Zach has a good run. I mean, I think, and maybe Max can, who's going to find the way to the podium? Is it going to, the new guy, the 53?
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. That'd be cool. It'll be fun because you got all these storylines. You touched on them too. Bryce, we talked about, is going to have a chip on his shoulder after the way that second moto goes. He'll be good. Chad, obviously he'll be good. Max coming back to the Midwest here. He's another guy like Chad. He probably shines the most on the rough tracks, but Max, coming to the Midwest here, close to home here, racing in Indiana is close to Wisconsin, one of our closest races of the year. So I would think that he kind of feels a little at home there. Wesley Wolf will look for a bounce back ride. Nick as well. Jeffrey's podiumed at this track before. He's actually had a lot of good rides here. Jeffrey has. So yeah, man, you can look at that whole top 10. Like we said before, we're almost halfway through the season and everybody in the top 10 is hoping and thinking that they should be on the podium, and can't wait to see how it plays out.
Yeah. You mentioned Jeffrey, and Jeffrey is somebody I kind of forgot about, but he's had some flashes of brilliance, and he has some real speed, and they have some real power in that Williams package. You've seen Sar and Hogue with great, it was a downhill start, but it is what it is. They both had great starts in that first moment. So, I mean, and Brandon had fastest, everybody's making power right now.
That's for sure. And Crawfordsville Ironman's one of those tracks where you're going to see it because that's a fast one. That's a fast one for sure. Mike, Indiana's a little farther from Florida than the others have been. So yeah, I'm assuming maybe we're not going to see you up here.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to take a couple races off. Summer's coming. The jet skis are calling me. But no, seriously, if it was closer, I would go. But I'm probably not going to make this one.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we're going to keep you on speed dial for sure. I love your opinion and your expertise on this stuff so much. I love hearing the technical side of things, and I love that I love the way your brain works and your racing mind works. You're a legend on the track back in the day. You're a legend off the track now, man. And I really appreciate you being such a gracious guest. You've been such an awesome addition to our show. Just really grateful to have you, pal. So thanks again for being here for another episode, man. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I love the show, man. I love like I said, when you name the show, you hit the nail on the head because you bring out stuff I don't even know about.
It's funny. I had a buddy, I think at the time it was Tyler Hamrick. And I think he said, listen to the Dirt Bike podcast. And he said, you could do this as an ATV podcast, and I'm like, yeah. And I'd probably call it Digging Deep. I just thought it was like on a whim, I just came up with the name. I'm like, just like, it makes sense. We're digging into shit, so, right. So, yeah, Mike, I appreciate you being here so much. Like I said, I appreciate everything that you bring to the show and look forward to doing this again soon, pal.
Yes, absolutely. Till next time.
Awesome, Mike. Well, have a good night, pal. And We'll talk soon. Okay.
Yep, you too.
That's
Bye.
Mike Walsh signing off on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast brought to you by UPP Racing. Have a good night, pal. Thanks so much. Man, and just like that, another race review pod in the books. Major thanks to Mike Walsh for joining the show yet again this week. He's such a phenomenal guest. Thanks to all of our partners, CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Major thanks to SSI Decals, Valvoline, DID Racing Chain, Lauderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, DP Brakes, Impact Solutions, Ultimate Poly Products, UPP Racing. Use discount code DiggingDeep15 at uppracing.com and Manscaped to get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support the brands that support our show and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find it all on our website and be sure to click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner for all your gear and parts needs and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. You can shop our Digging Deep merch at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com. So you're going to want to check that out, and we will bring a whole bunch of merch with us this weekend to Ironman. You can find all things Digging Deep ATV Fantasy related at atvfantasy.com, including results from round 4 showing our event winners, John Rumleski, Brody Shull, Evan Bergman, Cameron Yoder, Patrick Reynolds, Mike Prissy, and Chad Gerber. Congrats to this batch of winners. And it would be cool. I'm going to challenge some of you to leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on the show. But if you're calling it right now on what we're going to see at Ironman, I think you call it right now, like we did those years ago when we said, what if it rains at this race? And Nick DeNoble ends up dang near finishing on the podium and winning the second moto there at Ironman. This is your opportunity to call your shot. Leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on the show next week. You'll look like a genius. So leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on the show next week. 920-569-3519. That's 920-569-3519. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, you can visit our website and click the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. You can follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff as we are in the midst of an exciting ATV motocross season. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com. So check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend. Please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Mike Walsh, Brooke Jansen, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen, thanks for listening to and making us the most listened to podcast in ATV racing, with nearly 280,000 downloads last month in 113 total countries. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real. I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quadlers are freaking gnarly.